Good morning. Hello and namaste. It's very early in the morning here. Sun hasn't risen yet, so it's pretty dark outside. This is the time of the day that I love the most. There is silence in the atmosphere. Of course, because I live alone, there is usually silence in my room. But at this point of time, there is silence outside as well. This is the time when I somehow succeed in connecting to my deeper self. At least that's what has been my experience. Probably after having had a good night's rest, I have greater clarity with respect to my thoughts as well. And I'm hoping that clarity will transfer onto this video. So for a long time, I have been thinking of doing monologues on different topics, on any topic that fascinates me, on any topic that is intriguing me at that particular point of time. I just never came to doing it. So I'm hoping that this will be a good start, that I will consistently create these videos, that I hope you will find some value. On my current channel, of course, you mostly see my lectures that I have recorded for my students, and those lectures are pertaining to the topics of leadership, motivation, stress management, and the associated topics, the areas that I teach. Now, these monologues aren't necessarily going to be about those topics. They are going to be about anything that fascinates me at the time that I'm making those videos. So I was thinking, what should be my first video about? I watched a really great movie last night. It's a Japanese movie, 2023 Japanese movie called Perfect Days. And it's a lovely movie. So I thought, well, why not talk about that movie? And this is not going to be a movie review. I'm not a movie reviewer as such. Although I did fantasize about becoming a movie reviewer once upon a time. In any case, this is not a movie review. This is more a reflection rather than a review. Reflection on the philosophy of the movie, or for that matter, any other movie if I talk about in the future. They are going to be more a deeper analysis of the psychology, of the philosophy of those movies, as opposed to being a critique of the way the movie has been made. Although, even with respect to this movie, there is something that could be said about the way it was made. Because this is a very slow movie. It's very different from the typical movie that we see. Traditionally, in movie making, what is advised is that you have a tight script where things move from one scene to the other in a very fast pace so that you don't get the audience bored, so that the audience is engaged. And those scenes also need to be structured in the way that you are eager to find out what happens next. That's what keeps you glued to the movie. And that's a sign of great storytelling. we see that in great novels as well, not just movies. But in stark contrast to that approach, here is a movie which doesn't have that tight script. Of course, I'm sure when the movie makers were making the movie, they still had everything planned out. It's a very conscious process of movie making. But from the audience's perspective, things aren't necessarily very tight. Actually, I probably should start giving a brief overview about the movie. So this is about an older gentleman, maybe in his late 50s or early 60s, a highly intelligent person who actually works as a toilet cleaner in Tokyo. So this movie is about he going about doing his business every day, how he wakes up early in the morning, and he's a very disciplined person, how he immediately folds his bed, puts them aside, goes about doing his regular morning rituals, and then heads off to work, to the different toilet locations, and then how he very diligently cleans those toilets, how he's not in a rush, how he makes sure that every small bit of the toilets are completely clean. So he takes his job very seriously. He's devoted to, or is committed to what he is doing. And I said he's a very intelligent person, and we see that based on his other habits. He reads. He has a great collection of books in his small apartment where he lives, and he reads every night. He reads and until he is too tired and he falls asleep. And these are some great books, not just some popular chick-lit romance kind of books, not some popular thriller kind of book, but profound books. He is also in love with great quality music. So the movie has some great soundtracks, and we hear those soundtracks when he's driving to his workplace meaning the different toilets that he has to drive to clean them up in the city of Tokyo. So while he's driving, he's listening to music in his cassette player. So he's not necessarily technologically savvy. He still uses the old technology of listening to music through cassettes, audio cassettes. So we hear some great 60s, 70s music, and he is fully involved in listening to that music. And that's essentially what the movie is about. A man going about doing his daily business. And a lot of that daily work is very mundane, very ritualistic, not necessarily something that is very exciting. And yet, that is so fascinating, that is so beautiful. I think this brings us to the first lesson that I took from the movie, that our daily chores can be highly interesting. We do not necessarily have to move to the next big thing, next exciting thing. We do not necessarily have to keep accomplishing things and move on to accomplishing the next big thing that we want to in our lives. I think true happiness comes from we being fully involved in what we are doing. It's not about just checking off boxes. Rather, it is about doing what we are doing with full involvement, with full engagement. And when we succeed in doing that, that's when we find true meaning in life. That's when we find happiness in life, genuine kind of deeper happiness in life. Between his different stops, one of his toilet stop that he has to clean is in a park. So after cleaning that toilet, this man, he usually takes a break. That's when he has his lunch, the lunch that he would have packed. And all he does is sit quietly, has his lunch, watches the tree. And you can see in the expressions of the actor how happy the man is watching the tree, the leaves of the tree. And this is something that we are forgetting to do. There is so much beauty in everything around us. More so, of course, if it is related to nature, like a tree, like an animal. But even in a chair, in a table, in a light post, there can be so much of art, there can be so much of beauty. And we can see that beauty only when we see it through a very mindful, very conscious eye, when we are fully involved and not just glance through that particular object. And the most interesting thing is that this man does the same thing every day. He watches the same tree every day. And yet, each time he watches that tree, we can see that it moves him at a deep level. So there is a Zen-like feeling to the movie. And for those who know me personally, probably can understand why then I related so much to the movie. So this brings me to the second point or maybe third point, I'm losing track of my thoughts now. There is a lot of silence in the movie. There is no heavy, music or background score going on throughout the movie, except for when he's driving, when he's listening to the music that he's playing in his van. We don't hear a lot of music. And more than that, the protagonist is mostly silent throughout the movie. He does interact with different people in the movie, but even in those interactions, he speaks very little. And that brings us to this point of the importance of silence, the importance of listening more than speaking. Again, going back to the idea of Zen, where silence is valued a lot. In the Zen tradition, when we are talking about silence, it is not so much about the absence of noise. Rather, it's about a conscious choice of choosing silence. It's a very active process. And that's exactly what we see happening in the movie. Now, why place so much value on silence? Because we make those deeper connections around our environment, to the things in the environment, to the people in our environment, when we are listening, when we are silent, not so much when we are talking, not so much when we are eager to give a pat response. Just the other day, I came back from a party, lovely party, great people, interacting with all of them was nice. But can I be in a party atmosphere throughout the day, every day in my life? And the answer would be a definitive no. That would drain me out if we are constantly interacting with people over and over again. And if a person is an introverted person, the person will get drained out sooner than an extroverted person. But even for an extroverted person, You just cannot be in that process of talking and engaging in fun over and over again. You need that silence, that break. But if you are in silence, then I think it is possible to stay in that state for long periods of time. At least that would be true for me. Maybe that's how I have become over the years. Although my friends from my college years will know that I had been at least a highly extroverted person, very social person. But I have come to value silence much more now. And I talked about Zen, but silence is valued a lot in my own Hindu yogic tradition as well. In fact, the greatest of the spiritual teachers, when they are giving their lessons, they give it in silence. So there is a energy transfer that essentially happens between the teacher, between the guru and the disciple. So when you are speaking about things, which is paradoxically what I'm doing here, you communicate ideas, you communicate information, you communicate knowledge. But words have their limitations. There are things that you cannot communicate through words. And that's where silence comes into play. That's why silence is more powerful. Plus, words can be deceiving. Silence not so much is what I would say. What else should I be talking about? Well, I am reminded of a scene in the movie where the protagonist and another gentleman, both these gentlemen, they have some major difficulties that they are going through. And what you typically expect, or what is recommended in today's world, is that you talk about your challenges. That's what psychotherapy is all about. The person feeling depressed talks about it to the therapist. But here we see that these two guys, well, they talk about it briefly just to know about what the other person is going through. But then they're not just talking about it. Soon they start playing with each other. And what kind of play? A very simple child's play. What you see is that they are playing catching the shadow game, thing that children would play. So this is night time at a park. There are those street lights which then form those long shadows. And these two older gentlemen in their early 60s probably, they are chasing each other's shadow. And that gives them so much of joy. And this is something that once we become adults, we lose that ability because we get so engrossed in chasing the next big thing. So these small, simple activities can actually get us more connected with people and connected with ourselves. We are social animals, I don't deny that. But I think the social animal part has been overemphasized in our culture. And because of that, we are valuing those constant social interactions too much, especially in the United States. Plus, again, I being a professor of leadership, having studied this topic well, know that the American society is a society that values extroversion more than introversion. In the leaders, we tend to value extroverted qualities more than the introverted qualities. While both have their strengths. So the point is not about not interacting with people. The point is to find time in our daily lives to connect with our own deeper self, which can only be done when there is silence around us, which can be done when you silently pay attention to things around you. Anyway, I think I have spoken enough about the subject. I probably should just re-emphasize one more point, and that is about the dignity of work. For whatever reason in this movie, the protagonist has made a conscious choice to be cleaning toilets, right? That's a job that most people will look down upon. And given that this is an intelligent man, has refined tastes, for most people of such mental caliber will get extremely frustrated doing such a mundane, menial kind of job. But that's not what is happening in the case of the protagonist. And why? Because anything and everything that we do, the most mundane of our, let's say, daily chores, it could be cleaning the house, it could be cleaning dishes, it could be anything. We can do it with full involvement. And when we succeed in doing that, that's when we derive a deep sense of happiness, a deep sense of satisfaction. That's the lesson that, or one of the other lessons that I took from the movie. I thought, or at least I claimed, that during this morning time, I have great clarity in my thinking, but I probably rambled around for too long. But this is also because I don't have the practice of being able to speak on anything without a proper kind of plan about what I would be speaking. So my apologies if I did not follow a structured approach to what I'm speaking. But I still enjoyed doing this, and I think that matters more than anything else. But I again hope you found some value in this video. So with that, I will stop this video. Thank you so much. You all have a great day, productive day. Yeah. Thank you.